and welcome to Dregs of Wisdom with Andrew Tanner.
All right. Hey, everyone. It's episode 3 of Dregs of Wisdom. If you're here, thank you. Today, I wanted to start to introduce a series on the Dao De Jing, which is a text that I've been reading for over 25 years, I actually realized. I started reading it when I was 16 years old. I got into it because there was a girl I was really interested in who had a tattoo on her back of the Dao symbol. And I thought that was extremely cool. And so I bought a copy of the Dao De Jing. And I still have that original copy. This is a different version we're going to be reading from today. But the Dao De Jing has been a source of wisdom for me for these last 25 years. And it seems to get deeper and deeper for me the more I read it. So I want to share some of that with you. I'm going to do a series on every verse of the Dao De Jing. And today we're going to be talking about verse 1 of the Dao De Jing. And just a quick background on the Dao De Jing. It's a Taoist text, dates, sometime around 300 BCE to as late as 300 CE. There's different ideas about, how old the Dao De Jing was originally. It was written by a fellow named Lao Tzu, which means old man. And so it could have been compiled from a series of talks from, wise old men, or it could have been written by one particular figure, depending on who you ask. It does have similarity throughout in its writing structure. And so it very likely could have been one very wise teacher. Though Dao De Jing means, Dao means the way, De means virtue, but it's kind of like hidden virtue. It's the virtue, not as we think of it in the West as kind of like, oh, if someone has a great job and a great house and looks good and is healthy, that they're virtuous. Those are things that we value, but virtue would be like, hidden virtue would be more like the person who lets you finish your sentences, the person who is kind when no one's looking, the person who can, be empathetic to others and be compassionate to others and shows their virtue through their actions that are unheralded. So Dao De Jing, which means book or teaching. So we have the way of hidden virtue, the book of the way of hidden virtue. And that's what the Dao De Jing is. And so the verse 1 of the Dao De Jing, I want to read it first, and then I'm going to kind of go line by line into some of the translations and what they mean. And the version that I'm reading from today is by Stephen Mitchell. I think he's a fantastic, he has a fantastic translation of the Dao De Jing. He's also translated the Bhagavad Gita and many other books. Highly recommend it. So here we go. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The unnameable is the eternally real. Naming is the origin of all particular things. Free from desire, you realize the mystery. Caught in desire, you see only the manifestations. Yet mystery and manifestations arise from the same source. This source is called darkness. Darkness within darkness, the gateway to all understanding. So Lao Tzu starts by saying, the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. When I think of this, I always think of a class that I took my freshman year of college, in which it was a linguistics class, and we were studying a painting by Magritte, and it's a painting of a pipe, and it says, "Ce n'est pas une pipe." This is not a pipe. And the whole point of it was the word pipe itself doesn't have any intrinsic meaning of this thing that we're looking at, this painting we're looking at. It depending on the language that one comes from, depending on the culture that one comes from. Someone, when they think of a pipe, might think of a little tiny pipe. Someone might think of a big Gandalf pipe. Someone might, maybe the word pipe means something totally different. Maybe it means a small mouse. And the point being that when you try to name the eternal Tao or the eternal name, like when you try to put a name on God, for example, you're just giving it a name. And if you think about our world, like think of all the wars that have been fought over what's God's real name. That always blows my mind. When words in themselves are culturally relative, and yet we fight over, it's the same as what we've been doing since we were tribes, fighting, 100,000 years ago. And so what's amazing about this philosophy is 2,000 years old, and 2,000 years ago, they're saying, whatever you have is your name for the eternal. It's just BS. It can't be named. It's unnameable. And so any name that you would give it, it's not the eternal name. And this is why they call it the Tao. Tao just means the way things are. It's just a name to describe that which is. So the unnameable is the eternally real. That's what it said next. And naming is the origin of all particular things. So as soon as you name someone, we'll go back to our kind of biblical references. If you think of the story of the Garden of Eden, right? As soon as you take something and say like, this is an apple, or this is an iPhone, headphones, or whatever they are. Once you start naming things, you create a separation between yourself and the thing that you're naming. And naming, according to the Dao De Jing, is the origin of things becoming particular, of there being kind of a difference between you and everything else. And it's really the origin of disconnection, similar to the story of the Garden of Eden. So that knowledge, right, the concept of knowledge, we think of knowledge as like being able to name every little thing, being able to understand every little part of something. Knowledge is also the origin of separation. So then the next stanza is, free from desire, you realize the mystery. Caught in desire, you see only the manifestations. I just want to give you an alternate translation of this before I explain it. From this alternate translation is from the Zen monk Takuan, who was writing in the late Middle Ages. And he said that the word desire, it implied, kind of wanting fame or profit or sensuality. And so not as well as just thoughts themselves. So when you are free from this need for fame, for sensuality, for profit, and thoughts themselves, like those desires lead towards thoughts, those thoughts, when all of those things are eliminated, then you realize the mystery. Okay, what's the mystery? Well, we've just said it's unnameable, although we have said it's eternally real. But I would describe it as your consciousness, your awareness, being in a state that is beyond judgment and beyond need for anything to be different, right? When you're free from desire, you don't want things to be different than they are. When you have desire, even if it's like, oh, my head's itchy, I want it to stop itching, therefore I need to scratch it. Even that little desire means you want your situation to be different than it is. But when you're free from desire, you can experience, oh, my head is itchy, but I have no need for it to be any different. You might even take on the mindset, especially if you're practicing meditation, of like, oh, how interesting. So another way of kind of shifting desire is when we have, in yoga, we have this term, You're either desiring something or you're averse to something, right? You either want something or you want something to go away. So when you have aversion, you can practice being more interested in it. And when you have a desire for something, you can practice letting that go. And when you do that, it's like neutralizing your desires. And in that moment, you can have a realization. And I would offer anyone watching this video, try this today. You can realize the mystery today if in the moment that you have a desire, you let it go, or in the moment you want something to go away and you lean into it. And you could try this something simple, like every morning when I take a shower, I make the water really cold. And every morning I don't want to get in the cold shower. My body doesn't want it, but I still turn it on. I let the cold go over me. And it's so funny how it brings me wisdom and clarity. And it's what's hilarious about it is that before I turn the cold water on, I've already forgotten what that wisdom feels like, what that state of mind feels like. But as soon as I experience it again, I'm like, oh, this is it. And so this interplay between desire and understanding the mystery, this is a very key in the Tao. The next line is, caught in desire, you see only the manifestations. And this is very simple. When we're caught in our desire for anything, all we see is that thing that we don't have, or that thing that we don't want that we do have. And we let it take over our lives, and we let it create this false sense that our lives are imperfect and that our lives are, that we're unwell. And then it becomes like something that we fall into. It becomes like a rabbit hole that gets deeper and deeper. And I will say in Takuan's translation, his says, caught in desire, instead of you see only the manifestations, he says, watch for the openings, or watch the openings. And he's referring to the openings being your openings, your eyes, your nose, your mouth, your ears. These are the openings, your senses, in other words. And he says, when you're caught in desire, watch the openings, i.e., watch your senses, and practice noticing things without judgment. So in his commentary, he says, if you can, when you find yourself caught in desire, like let's say for me, my biggest challenge is screen addiction. And sometimes I'll notice like, oh my God, I've been watching YouTube videos way too much. I have been, I'm disconnected. I'm caught in the manifestations. Okay, let me just pay attention to the sensations coming in through my eyes, my nose, my ears, my mouth. Let me use that as a mindfulness practice. And what that does is it brings awareness to one's body. And that's like another way to instantly snap out of a kind of hole that you might have dug yourself in. Because when we dig ourselves into these desire holes, we go more and more into our mind and our pain body, and we get less connected to our physical body. Our physical body becomes something we don't want to feel more and more. We don't want to feel the discomfort in our physical bodies. We want to keep eating. We want to keep doing whatever will make us feel good. So the last two stanzas I'll put together as one, and I'll just add that the word mystery and the word darkness are often an interplay or an interchanged as the same word in the Dao De Jing. And when you read these last two stanzas, think about that as we're going through. Yet mystery and manifestations arise from the same source. This source is called darkness. Darkness within darkness, or mystery within darkness, the gateway to all understanding. So if the great mystery or the great truth of reality of life as it is, and the manifestations, the physical world that we live in, this kind of wild when you think about how crazy the world is, like just the fact that we even exist, how wild that is, and how intricate and varied it is, and how infinite it is. When you think about the manifestations of life, that it is mind-boggling, right? And what Lao Tzu says is that both the mystery, which is kind of knowledge of truth, and the manifestations arise from the same source. And that source is called darkness. I think a lot about Genesis in the Torah or the Bible. It says, at first there was the void, and then God spoke, so whatever that void was in the beginning. I remember when I was in high school, we read in an AP English class, we read the Bible as an English literature text. And I just remember being like, whoa, why are we skipping over this whole void thing that was there before anything else? Like, what's that? That's like what the Dao De Jing is all about. It's like, what's the Dao? What's that void? The darkness within darkness, the mystery within darkness, the gateway to all understanding. So if I had to sum up the first verse of the Dao De Jing, I would just say, what is the Tao? Well, it's something that we can't name. It can only be experienced. Welcome to the mystery, my friends. Don't get too attached. And I'll leave you with Takuan's saying after his interpretation of verse 1. He said, the way, or the Tao, is nothing in particular. It is just so. All right. Thank you, my friends. I hope you enjoyed this little foray into Taoism. We'll come back with more verses to come, and hope to see you around in the next Dregs. Peace.